Hey everybody, welcome back to another comic book spoiler review. Today I will be covering, for the Christmas holiday, uh, Grant Morrison's Klaus, How Santa Claus Began. I think this will be like the first boom comic that I'm gonna be reviewing on the channel. The only because I covered Marvel, a couple of DC. I did Hellboy comic book review, like a series in one video, because like this short adventures. So you can check out that on my YouTube channel, youtube.com/talkative Carl. You can follow me on links in the description, with especially YouTube, where I cover a bunch of comic book reviews, as well as TV show, movie, and of course my Twitch, where I go live stream playing video games. Currently going over God of War Ragnarok, excellent game, as well as like Evil West, Overwatch 2, etc. But I have a whole bunch of other games that I played in the past. You can also watch on YouTube as well. Anyway, the Hellboy thing, that'll be the first Dark Horse comic that I've reviewed for the channel. The only thing left is to cover a Image comic, which obviously it has to be like a Spawn thing, because off the top of my head, like Spawn is like their like for Image, it's like their Superman, because it's like this. Well, I know they did other Image stuff. There's other Image characters, but only Spawn really comes to mind with almost any comic book reader. But anyway, so yeah, this will be my first Boom Studios comic that I'm reviewing. I want to do the Klaus sequel to this later on in the month of December, and I figured, last year I did Batman Noel, which you can check out on my YouTube channel as well, and my thoughts on that. Another holiday comic, one of my favorites. And there's he did like a series of Klaus stuff, but I'll figure I'll do two this month, and then next year I'll do a couple of more, just to keep it in the theme of the holiday season. Anyway, a lot of the story clearly inspired by the Breaking and Bass old late 60s, early 70s type of stop motion animation cartoon that I watched, somewhat of when I was growing up. Yeah, there was a lot during the 90s, because like Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, uh, 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 Santa Claus is Coming to Town, uh, I forgot which one of the ones that this is based off of, but it loosely based off of, not like shot for shot, but definitely took some elements of. And clearly, Grant Morrison was he not just for the Breaking and Bats, but there's a lot of folk tales of different variations of Santa Claus through different civilizations, dramatic, Russian, American, and even like some bit of Norse, maybe, because this is straight like if Santa Claus was like a freaking Viking or something, because he's just like a total badass in this. So anyway, uh uh narration goes, and Klaus, as he's called in here, going to Grimsvig, this little, not a little, but like a decently sized kingdom called Grimsvig. And as he making his way to sell some furs and pelts and stuff like that, he come across this very like dismal, area like it's so freaking gloomy. It was like he just like wow, because he been here before. You'll find out a little bit later, but it's like wow, he's caught by surprise. It's like like everybody look like they fell on hard times. It's so gloomy. So and I like certain images where like it seems that when he has his hood up and like a shadow is kind of casting his pupils kind of has like a orange, almost sometimes red tint to them, like you got like heat vision or something. But it's like the whole manly beard, he's like the rugged. It's like a perfect example of like if you go inside of like a woman's mind and what they imagine a rugged man to look like. This is the image that they usually probably come up with in their minds, because he's like a good example of a rugged man. So comes in to get uh, a drink, and he asks him the barkeep like what the hell happened, and it's just the the ruler of the kingdom, this baron, is apparently just just by proclamation. There's no, even though it's Yule time or it's about to be Yule time, and typically everybody's celebrating and enjoying the merriment with friends and family. There's no festivities. There's basically no joy whatsoever. Kids even couldn't have toys. Any toy that is seen is immediately taken away and given it to his son, which he kind of looks like little Loki in my eyes. So he comes out of the bar and sees like the soldiers is rummaging through his stuff like hey what the hell. It's like this stuff is for this is not for you to take, it's for sale. And then they tell him like anything inside these walls belongs to the baron, and they tell him to get lost. But then the soldiers notice the kid is literally just holding a rock, and it's like, is that a toy? Like like there's no toys, toy plane here. And like Klaus is like, it's just a rock. It's like why? First of all, why are you banning toys and children for having any level of merriment? And second of all, you really gonna chastise a kid for like just playing with something? It's like, what the hell? Leave the boy alone. And like Klaus tried to defend the kid, and he gets jumped on by these soldiers. There's even like a well that says, like people who usually use it for a wishing well. There's a sign that says it's forbidden to wish, and it's like wow, it's like it's kind of like if that Kevin Bacon movie Footloose, whereas like the mayor bans dancing, which is obviously highly illegal, uh, uh, to ban something as like some rudimentary law, but it's just like it's just like I haven't seen that movie since I only seen that movie maybe like once or twice as a little kid. I probably should revisit it and do like a spoiler review on that, because that might sound like fun, especially after I just reviewed the Guardians of the Galaxy holiday special, and Kevin Bacon has a supporting role in that. Slight spoilers to that, but you see the trailer, you should probably guess. And it's like, you know what? I should put Footloose on the list. And I will do this right after the video. I'll put Footloose on the list next year for movies for me to review. But Klaus gets, butt jumped on by these soldiers for defending his kid. And a second. So they take the soldiers take his stuff, his hoodie and drag him out in the middle of the snow, planning on hunting him for sport, but giving him a head start. But then he's saved by his trusty wolf named Lily, and this is like a big wolf. But Klaus gets hit by an arrow in the ensuing scuffle. So you end up meeting, uh, the Baron and his kid, who's all the toys that he has in his possession. Because if like the Baron cares about anyone, is his kid. But this kid is clearly was spoiled rotten by this guy, and he doesn't appreciate, because it's literally like a model village based off of Grimsvig, and then he's just like kicking and destroying. He's not. He gets bored easily, so he's destroying any toy that is given to him. So then you also meet uh the Baron's wife. Uh, uh, uh Hold on, because the son's name is Jonas, and I'm trying to find this woman's name, because she used to be the princess of this village. Uh, but and her father was the king until he died, and the Baron kind of took over as like a substitute until like, because they're like a small section into a larger kingdom, and like the king of the larger kingdom, it supposed to be visiting soon around Yule time to put in place a proper successor, because the princess, I guess at that time, I think a lot of kingdoms were like this back in the day in realistic terms. I wouldn't say it wasn't any legit like solo ruling females in like certain Middle Ages and Celtic stuff. It's not unheard of, but it's like not often. They primarily want to focus on making sure there's a male person on the throne typically. Anyway, you can see like this woman is like dead in her eyes. She cares for her son, but it's like this Baron sucks so much joy almost out of everything. She's just like just barely dead to the world. So Klaus is in this little hut area, and he's healing himself, mending himself, and he starts playing on his flute, and he started seeing like these almost look like alien ghosts. It's the way that it is drawn, because clearly it's supposed to be just spirits of the forest, but it look almost like dead aliens in a way. But it's beautifully drawn, and it gets very trippy. So it's like they overtake him, and then by because it's like he starts almost like in a trance like state, taking out his knife and start hacking parts of the forest. And by the time he wakes up, thinking he's just been like oh, he's just been asleep this whole entire time. And he wakes up and he finds just all these toys. Uh, you know, he finds all these toys scattered around him, and he's like, "What? Like, what am I supposed to do with this?" And he's wondering, like, he's asking this wolf, like, what did I do last night? So, he came up with the idea to start bringing these toys to Grunsvik. And of course, he has to go in the dead of night because, it's hard to get in through the day with there's too many guards posted. And he needs to be able to go in and out without being stopped or the toys being taken from him. And so, it's pretty much like this very Batman Begins like stuff going on here. And so, Klaus hops, with his big sack of toys, hops over using a grappling hook, hops over the massive wall, and under the dead night starts, leaving toys to the children. And at the same time, he leaves the toys on the front porch. It was not until later he starts dropping them through the chimneys. But at the same time, he's, very Arkham Asylum like kind of stuff, starts knocking out the guards as they're, by themselves. So it's pretty dope. And then he just defacing the posters of the Baron and, putting smiles on his face. And this runic word that's pretty much is the runic word for joy. It's almost like a backwards P. So the next morning, kids wake up and they're all playing with toys. This is very like, Burgermeister Meisterburger from the Breaking the Bad Santa Claus movie. It is it's like you be hard pressed. If you've seen the cartoon, you'd be hard pressed not to put two and two together. So the parents wake up and the males in this village are all exhausted because they spend most of the day working in the mines, just digging out, tons and tons of coal. And so, because I don't even think reading through this, I don't even think these guys get paid at all. It's like very, very grueling, like just slave driving type of work. So this one man named Gunnar, who he and his son, who was playing with that rock earlier, they have like a parts to play in this story as well. So we'll get to that, obviously later. But the father's astonishment is like he's waking up and he's seeing all these toys, and one's like a bird that flaps and actually flies around, and like they all start to notice like every house has toys left for them, for the children. And of course, like the Baron's like obviously miffed. And I tell you right now, this dude's a piece of work. And so the Baron starts, Baron Magnus, he starts to round up every toy in every house. And one of the women there starts putting up a fuss. It's like, we always give toys at Yule time. And why don't you just have some mercy? And then he's clearly lying to these people. He's lying to them and his family, giving each one different uh 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 situations. Like, oh, he's telling this lady, my son can't, be out of his house. He's, his illness prevents uh uh him to be around other women, and it's like his only solace is toys. Would you rob a child? Because if all these kids playing, then what my son is supposed to do? Because he cannot interact with anybody, and blah blah blah. And then of course he tells his own kid that these people like have diseases, and I can't have you mingle with them and that kind of stuff. Uh, so it's like he's clearly has an ulterior motive that you'll see unfold halfway through, or at least getting close to the last couple of episodes, issues, because it's only a 7 issue story, so you can probably get through this within a day. And so uh, the toys being brought to this kid who's now is just a greedy little shit, at least for now. And so um he's playing with these toys, but they're not good enough. And he starts wrecking a lot of them. uh then the mother takes notice of one of the toys was this bird. It kind of you know she gets like a it's like earlier, her eyes is just kind of like a dead stare, but they kind of light up. And I love the art in this because you know each one has like a specific expression that sometimes it's subtle, sometimes it's not. But I just like there's one panel after this kid's trashing all these doggone toys that Santa made for the other kids. She sees this bird, and like that stone stare starts dissipating, and she's looking at this, and she's holding it, and it's like a sense of she's obviously remembering something. And then she goes to her quarters, and she goes to a hidden box that she in her belongings, and she looks at this old toy bird that she used to have, and it's almost like created in an exact same way. And she's like, Klaus. Clearly, she's had like a feeling who might be involved. So now the soldiers are not just the soldiers, like everybody's having like this kind of like a superstition, rumors going around, like, oh, it's the ghost of Yule time, or something or other. And so the soldiers bring along this big hulking monstrosity of a soldier, clearly dumb, but just all bronze, no brains kind of thing. And Santa thought he can get the jump on him and give him like a good hard punch, but obviously physical attacks ain't gonna work on this. It's like trying to fight Terry Crews. Despite like you being like decently fit yourself. The the comparison is still kind of dramatic, and so he decides to outsmart this thing and use a rope to trip him up and turn him into snowman. He knocks him unconscious and starts building like a snowman around this guy as he's laying unconscious. And I thought that was pretty funny. So, uh, uh, Magnus decides to, take a sack that was left by Klaus to utilize, the hunting dogs to sniff on the sack and start hunting down this person. And of course, at this point, Klaus is, cornered until Lily somehow snuck in, and because wolves are still in the canine family, she's the alpha. So all these other domesticated dogs cower and starts running away. Even though Klaus tells her like thanks, but you gotta get the heck out of here, because because these soldiers will shoot you down. So she, runs out of the village before the soldiers show up. It's just like I never thought I consider uh Santa Claus with like a wolf being the coolest image I've seen, but it's definitely up there as one of the coolest images I've seen that caught me by surprise. I love just to see this big giant white wolf standing with this like burly Santa. Cause I'm telling you right now, like Santa doesn't miss no arm, leg, or chest day. I'm telling you that much right now. And of course, there's a moment with this the captain of the guardsmen who also knew Klaus. Uh, uh, Similar to uh, the Queen of Brunswick. Well, he's more like a sergeant, not captain, but Linkvis is his name. And you see, like Santa Claus is like hiding amongst the rooftops near the chimneys, and it's just got funny image. It's like you got Santa on the roof next to chimneys, and this is where like the children starts utilizing the chimneys to send out wishes uh, to the ghosts of Yuletime to ask for more toys. Uh, and this one, you see uh, the queen uh, holding a bird and start like making like a wish of her own until Magnus shows up and sees the bird, destroys it. Cause this dude is like almost like sickly, but he got this like he's purposely drawn. Like this dude is like weaselly, you know you know, kind of like, no, not gangly, but it's like if you push the gnarliness of Loki just a little bit more, it's almost to that degree. Like a less confident Loki, and just more like, slightly on the gangly side. Slightly, not all the way. 'Cause he's still got some muscle tone, but he's still like, lean. And he's almost always in like a hood, like, it's like combine, Professor Snape with Loki, and you get Magnus. So he destroys the toy bird, refusing to give it back to uh, his wife. Well, it's the Baroness, not Queen, but because he's a Baron. So while Klaus is patching himself up, he's under the spell again of the flute, and of course he's gonna start making more toys. And Magnus goes deep in the secret part of these tunnels where he's holding his book and he's like speaking to this mysterious entity, mentioning like he wants to make sure that this creature upholds his end of the bargain because you know uh, 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 if the true king shows up, uh, 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 the creature, uh, I guess, growing impatient, but it's like like will get things done on time. Make sure you uphold your end of the bargain, because I want because he wants to be the king. He wants power. He wants obviously, you know, you know, complete control if he gets this creature out of his prison. And then uh, the next thing, Santa leaves this big giant symbol of joy up. I don't know how he got it done, because clearly he needed like some tools or something. But he leaves a giant symbol for joy out in front of the church, and rang the church bell to, was a little earlier than uh, expected. And they all come running out to see the symbol. So clearly he's a vigilante at this point. So he's hopping rooftop to rooftop, uh, and he's causing all this uh, uh, just embarrassing Magnus, uh, causing all this ruckus, bringing hope to the people, and this he can't have that. And that's when Dagmar, that's the Baroness name, uh, and Klaus meets up with Dagmar. This is where we actually get the this issue number 4, where we get some backstory, a little bit more backstory on young Klaus. You know, Dagmar's father, who was the previous ruler of this small kingdom of Grunsvig, and him and his men happened upon this frozen corpse of what is to be Klaus's mother, keeping him warm as she can possibly can, as much as she can, while freezing to death herself. But the baby survived, uh, uh, completely surviving this frigid cold weather. And so the ruler takes the child with him to live in Grimsvik, where he would be raised, and that's where uh, he grows up, starts whittling and carving out wooden toys for the children in the kingdom. Even though he was just like 8 or 9, almost 10 maybe at the time, and everybody just loved Klaus. And you see like a young Dagmar who lost her pet bird and sad, so Klaus made her a flying. Somehow, I was just probably some kind of mechanism, old school mechanism with small gears or something like that. Because this little toy is flying around, and this brings her joy and put a smile on her face, But of course, you see a dark-haired kid looking upon out the window. Uh, with his young Magnus, bitter with jealousy, because he liked her, and he says to himself, "I'll do anything to make her love me." And you hear this creepy voice in his head, saying, "Anything?" And so flash, forward to the present day, where Dagmar and Klaus had like a heart to heart, because she knew she recognizes him, and he points out how like she just gave up on the people she's supposed to be looking after after her father died, which she blamed him because Magnus poisoned the previous ruler. He was in a position to sub in until the king of the ruling villages in his kingdom names a proper successor. But I'm thinking like, okay, this had to, at this point in time, because Klaus was like a young man still, so this had to be like, I don't know, somewhere between 5 to 10 years, maybe. Well, it had to be because the kid is 10 or 11, maybe. So it had to be like a good decade and some change. And she blamed, because Magnus lied. He poisoned the king, but he blamed it on Klaus because of his shady or this mysterious past, and like certain things that he would know that people attribute to him. So he's kind of like, oh, you had this kind of knowledge, so you had to do it. And of course, he never, like, for some reason, never stood up for himself. He gave a reason, but it's kind of like, I want to say BS, but it's like he points out to Dagmar, it's like, would you have even believed me, basically. And of course, I was mentioning about the ultimate ruler. It's like, why did it take so long for him to come all the way down? Let's just say it's going to be a while for him to get there. Maybe it's like, a week's time on horseback or something like that. I don't know, but it's like, it should not take that long for like a proper ruler to just be. I'm not sure how the rules were. As I say, it was like, Middle Ages, early Middle Ages, let's just say that. I'm not sure what the rules are with this kind of thing, but it should not taken that long for somebody to come in to say, okay, your previous king has died. We're going to, put like a gathering around and go through the proper uh, procedures in order to put in a proper ruler for this village. But no, it took all this time. But because it's clearly established it was subbing in. It wasn't until word got out about his crappy way of ruling that puts like this village in a dismal state to where he has to come down here to starts looking over everything like what the hell's going on and why I'm getting like series of complaints about the poor conditions you put in your people through. And it's like, okay, like 10 years. And because like I said, they established, at some point during this, run that, he was just, standing in. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. Klaus points out to her, is like, you used to have so much, life to you. You was eager to help people and blah blah blah, and now look at you. You're just just filled with just like just coldness. And she still blames him for her father's death. He never like bothered to contest to that. Oh, and you also get to see like how he found Lily. She was like a small cub, and young as a young man, Klaus joined uh, the in the guardsmen of Grimsvig, and they all hunted down this pack of white wolves. But there was a one cub that got away, and Klaus decided to look after this one because he had a good heart. And Klaus points out, if I had any part in your father's death, would I come back to look into your eyes and uh, uh, to tell you that I'm innocent? He before he leaves, he hands Dagmar. It's almost like this almost like insectoid robot thing. It almost looked like General Grievous in a way. That's how I just called the thing. It's like he hands her General Grievous toy, and says it's for her son. Uh, and he says like merry Yule time, my lady. And so now this sweeping joy is overwhelming her that she haven't felt probably in a long time. It's like completely a different Dagmar at this point. She runs into Jonas's room with a big smile on her face. Her cheeks are a little bit more rosy, and she hands because this kid is in his room taking this massive mallet and starts whacking at all these toys, and it's like he's getting some aggression. I'll give him that, but she starts running to him and hands him this toy, and he of course, just like almost anything else, he gets bored with it quickly and is prepared to smash it until she stops him and tells him like, well, uh, 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 I suppose that that could happen, but then the story is over, and then you'll be bored again. Uh, and Jonas, his face starts to like lighten up a bit, and like things start to change a bit in him as he starts to playing toys with his mother. And he asks like, so what do you think will happen? What do you think happens next, mother? Are we playing or something? If you like. And so they spend a considerable amount of time just Dagmar playing with her bird, that she offers imagination into the playtime, was Jonas haven't been doing it. That's how kids probably will get bored very quickly if they don't add some imagination to what they're doing, and just playing and just like enjoying the uh just flexing their imagination muscles. And so she's like, oh, my bird is like a giant bird. What if a giant bird appears and maybe it looks like a bird, but really, and then Jonas chimes in, a ferocious dragon? The dragon's tired of the life of her cold, lonely mountaintop. She's tired of breathing fire and everyone being hated. So off she goes looking for a friend to share an adventure. And Jonas like, mother, this doesn't make any sense. Why would the dragon bird and the scarecrow be friends? And she says, I don't know yet. Maybe they both have special gifts. They don't seem to amount to much on their own, but put them together, they're unbeatable. And then, the robot, oh no, not robot, but Jonas says it's a scarecrow. It's fucking General Grievous. Come on. Anyway, General Grievous is right on top of this bird, and now, the scarecrow is riding this dragon, and now it's like they're having like a grand old time. But in comes Magnus to ruin everything. And he says like, Jonas, it's time to make a man out of you. And of course, the sergeant comes, next thing, the sergeant comes to the mines to see a bunch of the workers slaughtered by his men because they was, trying to begin like a revolt, because they're getting sick and tired of this. It's like day in, day out, hours on hours of grueling, just mining for what seems like for nothing. Like they don't even know what they're even mining for. And it comes to realize they're unknowingly digging out this creature that Magnus has been talking to. And it's like inches closer and closer to being freed. And when Linksvist shows up at his home, he finds Klaus waiting for him. And he tells Linksvik, like, when I last time, like, I know you was an honorable person, and you wouldn't had agreed to none of this. You wouldn't have let this stand. And Linksvik explains to him like, I thought I can just change things from the inside, but I just became a part of it, and it sickens me to my core. And like Magnus just grew stronger and stronger and more tyrannical. And he points out his uniform, like the red and white. They used to mean something, and like Klaus is like, they will again. So they hatched a plan. Everybody's hatching a plan. Magnus is making his son write a wish, because he's trying to draw out, obviously, Klaus. And that's when, because this part kind of like, I feel like there was like a missing page or something, because they kind of like, you got Jonas dragging his mother to this library, uh, that this book that his father showed him where his monster is at, and the kid is now like, frightened to his core. But I don't know, it feels like something's missing, because like, you know because he's trying to show her something that his father showed him, but in the last panel, last issue, you see him just, writing a letter to the Yuletime spirit. And now, next issue, you're seeing him dragging his mother to his library, and it's like, okay, you're missing something, because where's that point where your father is showing you this uh, monster that freaked you out so much? Uh, uh, he's then Magnus showing up, dragging this sword that he can barely lift, and uh, uh, he's completely paranoid at this point. He's thinking like his own wife is plotting against him. Uh, but then, of course, uh, he's pretty much losing it, because the monster's promising him uh, uh, the monster of Santa is like, chipping away at his authority. Now everybody's like, he thinks everybody's turning against him now, and like all he has is Jonas and Dagmar. And of course Dagmar's freaking out, because he just like completely is like, losing his grip. Meanwhile, Santa is going house to house, dropping gifts down the chimneys, and he breaks into the mines, knocking out the guards. And it's like a very badass moment where he's telling people, only one man has to work at Yule time, and that's me. And it's like, I don't know how you feel about like, because I know Santa Claus is supposed to be like, uh, fat and jolly and stuff like that, but I don't know, like, I wouldn't be mad with I mean, I know women probably will be like fetishizing him, but it's like, it's kind of like with Ryu in Street Fighter Five, when that trailer came out, and he has this whole full beard and the ruggedness, and everybody just called him Sexy Ryu, and it's like, this is like, sexy Santa Claus, and it's like he's rugged, manly, got like abs like for days, like kind of like a dark haired Chris Hemsworth basically, and he just comes up just carrying this sack of toys, and just rippling, muscles, barely, his clothes barely holding it together. And it's like only one man has to work on Yule time. And he sends he tells the workers like, there's gifts waiting for your children, and they all think this guy's gonna lead them to a revolution. And it's like, that's not what I'm here for. uh uh so he smokes, because he's trying to just uh he looks like he's trying to set fire to everything, but he's trying to, misdirection. Theatricality and deception are powerful agents. He tells uh the boy's father, the one who's playing on the rock, he's telling, because the father's, knocking out some guards, because he's like got sick of this at this point. And uh, he tells Santa, it's like, all these men is ready to follow you, but it's like, do I look like a leader? All I do is bring toys for children to make sure joy won't be forgot. This gift is yours, so take it. Spread the word, your Baron's grip is weakening. And so, uh, uh, Dagmar believes, okay, because at this point, everything's boiling to the surface at this point. The workers are headed up to here, especially with some of the men, like just like some of the soldiers are killing most of the workers that raise a fuss, and like the families at home getting tired that their children are being denied the simple pleasures. Yule times practically being canceled. So of course, you know everybody's rising up, and it's like you don't have enough freaking soldiers to deal with all this. And can you imagine the blowback you'll receive if all the soldiers start slaughtering his own people? Especially when the king eventually going to start showing up, which is literally in like a day or two. And then Dagmar goes out despite the protests of the soldiers. It's like, no, uh, uh, I gotta do something, because I gotta calm them down. They need to hear from their leader, because we answer to them. And she thinking like, oh, they can't hate me that much, but oh no, they start slinging mud at her, uh, and throwing trash at her, because like, yeah, she been ignoring them, because she was so dead to the world at this point, outside of maybe her a son. She have been paying attention to the pleas, and like have been really, as Klaus did point out to her, it's like you been ignoring them for too long, and so now they hate you by proxy to the Baron, because you didn't bother to fight for them. So of course, would you expect anything less at this point? So Santa Claus, falls for the trap laid by Magnus. They tied up Linsfig, uh, and they captured him and decided to drag him out in the middle of the uh, well, they said they chased him down and start firing poison arrows or fire tip arrows. Something. It looks ethereal, but for the sake of argument, let's say it's fire tip arrows. And they and of course some of the villagers are turned against him, and he asks them for help, and they all just start screaming, for the soldiers to come get him. And so he starts like running out, in an epic display of just parkourness. It's almost like Assassin's Creed mixed with Batman. And he's hopping rooftop to rooftop. He's injured. He's holding on to banners to slide down a side of the wall. But the boy who was playing with the rock, he helps Santa get out and drag him out of the village. And then now the soldiers starts rounding up all the children, which leads to a which he's planning on because the creature he's about to let out feast on children, more specifically, naughty children. Not that these kids are naughty, but the creature don't really give a f. But you know, he has like a particular taste for naughty children. So, the boy drags Santa out with the help of Lily to his hideaway, which Madness easily follows. And Dagmar and Jonas plan on trying to slip out of the village, and because this place is gonna implode, and she doesn't want to involve her son in that mess. Of course, that doesn't work. So while Santa is trying to heal at home, uh, uh, Lily is shot by an arrow, and Santa gets knocked out when he starts to answer the boy's screams. The boys gets taken away, and at this point, Magnus and the soldiers are once again. It happens a lot through this run. It's like a lot of people leaving Santa out in the middle of nowhere, expecting him to die through the natural elements, instead of just off him right then and there. You got swords, freaking use them. But anyway, they burn down his own house with all the toys inside. And then they started leading him to the elements, which technically works, because technically him and Lily die on the ice until the spirits of the woods revive him, which kind of feed into the story of Santa Claus being a magical immortal. And then Finn, that's the little boy's name. When Finn gets taken to the place where the other children are being held, he sees his younger brother and sister and all these other neighborhood kids are eating up all these sweets, and he screams like, stop eating, don't you realize you're being stuffed? And they don't know what his issue is, because they're eating very good, but they're being fattened up. It's almost like Hansel and Gretel kind of situation. Like I say the dark, twisted version, but even with the kiddified version, it's still like heavily hinted that she was planning the witch is going to eat these children. So it's pretty much a play on the story. Then Finn's father, Gunnar, the one who's asking for Santa to lead them, he's back in the mines, and he's chipping away angrily, like you're taking our children, you're forcing us in these mines, and and like we're giving y'all everything, and what do we get? And then he finally cracks the wall where you see this creepy eye poking through and muttering, hungry. And it's Santa Claus's arch enemy, Krampus. And so he starts sniffing out the children. And this is when like the king finally shows up, and immediately starts pointing out the the issues that he heard about, like, your people are living in squalor while you live in luxury, and your laws are inhuman and arbitrary, and like you're going to be uh, arrested, surrender, or if you resist, war will be declared. And of course, this muck is like literally sitting on the throne, and it's like, it's like, come dine with us. It's like, you travel a long way. Well, why don't you just sit and eat? We can just chat it up. It's like there's one more guest coming, and of course it's like, the way he's drawing, like this guy gets perpetually more crazy as the 7 issues are continuing, and then in comes bursting in, Krampus, carrying like a flaming corpse with him, and starts hitting some people with it. And while people are trying to fight back, Santa, of course, is revived by the magic of the spirits, and because I like you see here, like, yeah, technically Santa Claus did die in this, but he comes back pretty fast. So Finn leads these kids to an escape through the kind of chute that they send the food down through. So they climb through, and while at the same time, Krampus starts coming after Jonas, because that's the first child he sees, and he points out like greedy, bad children for sack and for supper. And he points out like, oh, you're juicy with envy. And because earlier, Jonas has been like greedy, spoiled, rotten kid, unappreciative. And then Magnus is like, pissed, like, no, not my kid. I already set you free and already got like kids for you to like dine on. Like, you answered to me. And like, of course, the seal on the book where it held Krampus on is completely gone. So now there's nothing to rebind him. So Dagmar starts firing arrows at this thing, in a badass display, because who knew she had any kind of skills in archery, let alone any kind of fighting skills whatsoever. And she shot one in the eye of this monster, forcing him to let loose his grip on Jonas, who starts running away. He bumps into the other kids while they try to make an escape. And like, he freaks out like, stay back, I don't want to catch anything. And Finn's like, catch something? The hell are you talking about? That's where like the whole rubber meets the road here. I was like, and then all the kids start freaking out when like Krampus started like running after them. Then in comes Finn's dad, Gunnar, coming with his pickaxe, and starts chopping at the back of this sucker, because you think Santa Claus would be mostly doing the fight, but no, it's like everybody's getting their shots in. Dagmar getting her shots in, Gunnar getting his shots in. It's like, everybody's trying to take this fucker down, because this dude is like, because you're coming after our kids, damn that. And it's like, it was like a huge fucking display. Everybody gets their moment here. This part gets really awesome. I really like this part. Then all the children's running. It's like, I seen this kind of thing happen in like a movie or a TV show or something like that. I can't think of off the top of my head, but it's like annoying back in my mind. There's like, I know I've seen something like this happen before, where like all these different characters trying to protect this uh 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 one individual or individuals, and they all jumping in trying to, like, because there might be rivals, friends, or enemies, but they all coming in to take on this one larger threat. They're coming after something that they all care about. It's like, no, f this, f this, f this, f this. It's really cool display. And kids are asking, is that the Santa? And the fans like, no, that's Dad. That's our dad. And all the kids starts running out of the castle into the arms of their parents. And Gunnar gets his 3 children, and it starts leading them out the castle. And Finn asks, like, what about Jonas? And his dad's like, forget him, don't stop running. Because it's like, that's the kid of the of Magnus. It's like, who gives a crap at that? Because that's, in his mind, that's how he feels at this point. But here comes Santa Claus riding on this, like, it's almost like a rock album kind of poster, because Santa and Lily on this, translucent magical sleigh being pulled by not reindeer but 8 wolves, and 8 white wolves. It looks like a freaking rock album cover. I swear it does. And he's like, because like Krampus screams like, nothing can save you from me. And then here comes Santa. It's like, we may have to disagree, evil one. Comes in with his big sword, pulling this, like right on the sleigh being pulled by wolves. How freaking metal is that? And then he starts like coming after this freaking beast, daggers in hand, straight up like, Assassin's Creed kind of, move, like, it was like just start cutting at this sucker. It's so cool. And but this smug Magnus comes out of nowhere and stabs Santa in the back. And then he starts demanding the creature all the stuff he was promised. Like, I want my kingdom, I want my crown, I want my people to love me. Which is clearly a display of, like, the level of jealousy and insecurity this guy has. And a lot of people, you can probably, equate that to a lot of people, where they reach to a certain point in their, like, naughtiness, where it's like, I want. And you think so much of themselves to the point where it's like, all you could have gotten this stuff through niceties, through like charitable stuff, it's like, or just being content with what you have. And but he got to this point himself. And then he tells Dagmar, is like, he sacrificed everything for you, and she points out, like, you murdered my father, you hunted Klaus to his death, you surrendered to a monster, Magnus. It's over. We're finished. And she has every right to point this out to him, like, you made a deal with the devil, man. And so he just, like, at this point, everything's crumbling. So he just screams out to this creature, you owe me. I want what I deserve. And whether he knew it or not, because he already dropped his sword, he knew what was going to happen, because he pretty much like death by suicide, or I would say, like, suicide by cop kind of situation. And so he submitted himself to getting burnt alive by this creature. And then of course everybody's cheering. And while Dagmar's trying to, Jonas is trying to run away. Uh, uh, Krampus, takes a chain and starts, dragging Jonas back to him, and of course, uh, Dagmar's trying to lift the sword to try to fight off this creature to save her kid. And then Santa comes through the smoke, where Magnus is, left crumbling and dying. And he takes the sword and it's like, let me do this. And he points out, like, I can't be killed now. I'm still not sure what that really means, but we'll see. And so, like, all the soldiers, Lily, all stand by to like keep the mob from like overtaking them, because like everything's reached to a boiling point at this point. And like while Santa's trying to get Jonas back from Krampus, Jonas says, like, I know I was bad. I know I was spoiled and greedy. I know that now. But the Santa only brings toys to good children. And Santa made this for me. And then, of course, like, Krampus, takes Santa's sleigh and corrupts it into, like, a demonic version. And Krampus says, like, all bad children belong to me. And Santa jumps off the rooftop and and points out, like, I say this: there are no bad children. And he hops on that evil sleigh and comes after Krampus. And he points out, like, Krampus says, like, they must be punished. Let me judge the terrible sins this child's committed and name just one that's worthy of a demon's wrath. And Krampus like, this boy told lies. There was pride and greed and ingratitude, and you burn as easily as the rest. And then, of course, Santa's like tricks this thing to fly so high up in the air where there's not enough oxygen to allow fire that this thing breathes. And Santa's it's like, you made me laugh for the first time in too many years. You know what else is funny? Up here, your fires don't burn. And he chops off this fucker's head, and he just starts laughing. Ho, 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 ho. And it was so badass. This is like the freaking metal. It's like, God, it's like the most awesome Santa I've seen. Man. And he saves Jonas, and he holds him tight, and he curls up into like a ball-like state, and it's plummeting to the ground like a meteorite. But he saves Jonas. Wait. No, that was Krampus. My bad. Krampus can come down to the ground like a meteor. It's not 100% sure he's dead, but maybe in the future comics it's probably like he makes a return. But Santa cleanses the sleigh, and he comes riding down with Jonas, and he tells everybody Merry Yule time. So Christmas tree is put up, it's decorated, everybody's celebrating, everybody gets toys. with Dagmar being a proper ruler now, she points out like, with Klaus as my advisor, I vowed to make amends for my late husband's dark misdeeds. Uh, and she points out to the magistrate like, Magnus was under an evil spell. Things will change in Brunswick. And of course, he the her superior points out like, we will keep tabs on things just to make sure you keep your word. And so, over the years, things start to take a turn for the better. Years go by, all the children grow up, but everybody's gotten getting older. Even like Dagmar is getting starting to show a little bit of her age. Gray hair little by little is getting shown, but Santa throughout this whole entire time has not aged. Even with like Finn and Jonas, they are becoming like young men now. And so at this point, she, ends up passing away, with Jonas being the ruler of Grinsvig at this point. And everything has just changed for the better. And at this point, it's time for like Klaus. He feels time for him to move on, because she was the only reason he stayed so long in his kingdom. And Jonas points out like, you leaving us, Father Klaus? The children will miss your tales and adventures. And so he hands Klaus this little pink bird. Said like, Dagmar my mother wanted you to have this. And Klaus points out, we'll be back once a year, once every year, to bring gifts to the children. It's a promise. And Jonas asks us like, there's 364 more days in a year. Like, where would you go? What would you do? And Santa Claus points out, it's like, oh, it's a big wide world. It's like, I just have to use my imagination. And so he takes off into the night sky, and sleigh being pulled by wolves. And the comic ends there, but man, this definitely check out Klaus. It's very fun. The thing is, I expected Dagmar to be Mrs. Claus. Some lights. I expected her to be the Mrs. Claus. I was kind of disappointed that did not transpire. Maybe there's a different Mrs. Claus. That's going to be down the line. But I like this whole turn with Jonas, because like, not all kids are bad. Sometimes they're misunderstood. Sometimes they've been fed a bunch of bull, but thanks to the joy that Santa Claus has brought, it really made like such a difference. I'll have a Christmas movie I'll be reviewing right after this in just a few minutes. It kind of harkens to this in a little bit. Also called Klaus. That was on Netflix last year. So I got some bits to say about that. But let me know what you thought about Klaus if you read this comic before. But if you have not, definitely check this out. A nice little comic to read. It's not too long. And it's pretty fun to have your kids read this too. It's just like a badass Santa Claus, and it's like I wouldn't be mad with a variation on Santa Claus where he just like a burly, cool Viking-like kind of dude. But I guess Santa Claus can be anything you want him to be. But yeah. This is pretty cool. But just a side note, uh, uh, there, I'm pretty sure you can look it up, but there was a guy. I'm not sure what part of the history is. Probably like I don't know, Renaissance, pre-Renaissance, something like that. It was like very, very long time ago. There was a guy in history that was to be known to be Saint Nicholas. That he did because he grew uh old as like maybe like close to 100 or something like that, and he spent most of the time delivering toys to children just to bring joy to the area, and that kind of like evolved into making him a saint, and it kind of evolved with the whole story of Santa Claus from moving forward. That just kind of evolved from there. So if people like say like, oh, if somebody want to be a smuck and tell people that Santa Claus doesn't exist, no, he exists, or past tense, but he was there. So it isn't like all the way factually false. But yeah, and that's how like when I have kids, I will be telling them, yeah, Santa Claus exists. As they get older, like I give them like a more like a piece of history a bit, so you can still keep that bit of magic to it, while without completely disrupting the entire imagination of the ideals of Santa Claus. But anyway, I will see you guys in a few minutes on the next spoiler review, and then after that, we're getting back to more God of War Ragnarok. Well, I'll probably play a little bit more Evil West and maybe some Yu-Gi-Oh! Master Duel, but we'll see what we can fit in. But I will see you guys in a little bit.